Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Concordia University's Force Space. Thank you for joining us for today's event, La Grande Histoire d'une Petite École, celebrating the 45-year legacy of the School of Community and Public Affairs. Just to help situate you, we are streaming to YouTube live from Force Space. We are located here on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. Here at Force Space, we work with our university community. We mobilize knowledge, co-create daily activities, examining research questions and projects, things happening across the university. Running today's event is a live stream Zoom meeting, so those of you joining us there, your comments and questions, just pop those into the chat and we can read those out a little bit later during the Q&A. For those of you here in the space, just raise your hand later on and we'll bring a microphone over to you so that everyone can hear. Okay, with that, it's very much my pleasure to pass it over to a current student in the School of Community and Public Affairs, Sky Machkota. Sky, welcome in.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Force Space, for hosting us, and thank you so much to Hana for putting this together and Dr. Sheftel. So today we have a great panel planned called What Are Universities For? The Past, Present, and Future of the School of Community and Public Affairs. And this event is the culmination of an oral history project that Hana and Dr. Sheftel have been working on for over a year now, since May 2024. So we're so excited to be able to have this discussion about the role of universities and the future of the School of Community and Public Affairs, and also to be able to explore this amazing exhibition that Hana and Dr. Sheftel have put together. So thank you all so much for being here. Like our introducer said, my name is Sky. I'm a current student in the School of Community and Public Affairs. I just finished my third year, so I'll be graduating at the end of next year. And I'm joined by 5 wonderful panelists. We have Dr. Dorothy Williams, Jay Salos, Sam Reed, Dr. Daniel Saleh, and Dr. Margie Mendel. So thank you all so much for being here today. It's really appreciated. So this panel, actually before we get started, Hana has put together a lovely little trailer for the project, the entire oral history project, and for today. So if we could maybe just watch that, and then we'll get started with the discussion. I think it just looped. Yay! Give a round of applause. Hana put so much hard work into this whole project and that trailer. Thanks so much. So, okay, without further ado, let's get into the discussion. So this panel brings together student, alumni, and faculty to talk about the past, present, and future of the School of Community and Public Affairs and of universities more broadly. So some questions that we're hoping to kind of get into today are, what does the SCPA's approach tell us about the potential of universities as anchors in their communities, as spaces for imagining creative ways to intervene in politics and society, and as sites for effecting positive change in the world? What do we need universities to be in this current moment? So to get started, I'd like to invite each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves and just talk a little bit about their relationship with the school. Maybe we can start with Dr. Margie Mendel.
Oh dear, that's pressure. Much easier to be the last one, because then you can just pick up on what everybody else has said. The role of universities today, one of you just said, that you're going on to Columbia University to do your master's, and my question was, does it still exist? And it was a partial joke, but I think it reflects a reality of the importance of universities today that are under attack in the United States, that have been dealt a bludgeon, and it's shocking to witness how people are losing their jobs, their careers. Students are being prevented from entering the United States. You've all read this, so there's no reason for me to go through it. It has affected Canadian research also. There are Canadian researchers that collaborate with with colleagues in the United States, and they're parts, and they are members of research teams and so on. And so what is the role of universities today? I mean, thankfully, we are in Canada, we are in Quebec, we are in Montreal. We have our own challenges. I know that. There are funding issues, there are cutbacks to the education sector in general. And it's paradoxical because never before has the role of university been more important. With the onslaught of particularly Trump so close by, but his impact and the impact of his administration is global. It isn't only on his neighbors in the South. Free and open thinking and critical thinking is vital. We have to fight for it. We have to struggle hard to make sure that this is not compromised. That's what a university is all about. I mean, I remember, you know, when I got tenure many years ago, tenure was it's a right, it's an entitlement, it's hard earned, but it really allows professors and their students to be able to spink means speak and think, spink critically, openly, without fear of you know, being called up because of opinions, because of views. There's no reason for me right now to go into all the disturbing issues that we face, but when universities begin to shut down public debate, this is when we realize that a society is really in decline. So I think that, and I'm going to stop here, but just to say that spaces like the school, I feel like, you know, a horse that keeps coming back to the barn. I mean, I've been retired for several years, but I'm always drawn back to the school for many reasons. But in terms of the question that you just asked me, the principal reason is because I feel we had and we continue to have a precious space that respects and encourages open discussion, free thinking, critical thinking, and interdisciplinary thinking. I think I'll stop here.
Thank you. You also asked us how we got to the school.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I came to the school because of Margie, actually. I followed Margie. Margie and I were, Margie, as you know, is a world-renowned scholar of Karl Polanyi, and at the time, back in the late 80s, I was also interested in the work of Karl Polanyi, so obviously I knew Margie was here, so I went to her, started talking about Polanyi and all that, and she happened at the time to be vice principal of the school. And the school is a nice place. I was at the time in the Department of Political Science. I still am, but I basically eventually asked to be jointly appointed with the school, and that's how I came to the school. I came to the school as a member of the school in '91, I believe. 5 or 6 years, but I kept my appointment with the Department of Political Science. As you know, some of you might know, I am now the chair of the Department of Political Science, but I was also principal of the school between '97 and 2007, and a couple of times after as acting principal. To go back to the larger, wider question about the role of universities, you want to tackle that now, or you want to wait a little bit?
It's as you wish. Maybe we'll just go around and let everyone introduce themselves, talk a bit about their role in the school, and then we'll tackle those larger questions. No, not at all. It's a good kind of intro to what we're going to be talking about.
Margie was principal for many years as well.
No, don't apologize at all. Great, thank you, Dr. Saleh.
Great, okay. Also, you just said that perfectly for that question also, Margie, so I want to echo what you said, but I guess we'll leave space for that later. So yeah, my name is Sam. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a 7th generation African Nova Scotian. Proud, happy to be studying in Montreal. and then off to the States, which is a different conversation. But yeah, I came to the school, I was working in community. My passion is youth work and community work. I've always done that. I'm an artist, musician first as well. So I've always found myself in those spaces and really geared towards youth. And honestly, at the time, I was working at a community center in Little Burgundy, and the conversations that I was having with youth at the time, they just were asking me so many, they're just brilliant, you know. I'm youth too, but youth that are younger than me, they have such great ideas and questions and forward thinking, and they just teach me so much, and they were asking me advice and questions of what to do to make the world better, or just very specific questions about the things that they were interested in. And we would have really in-depth conversations with each other, but I would find myself not always having like, oh, this is what you can do to become more engaged, to be, to make the changes that you want to see. So I decided to go back to school, and the pandemic was happening. So I just kind of went to the open house, and I remember I was talking with a lot of different departments. And actually, I can remember this very vaguely, or very vividly, actually. I went to the political science booth because that's what I thought I wanted to be doing. We wanted to learn about governance and all those things. And I was striking up a conversation with the student that was there. And then after I was speaking to her about my interests and why I wanted to go to school or go back to school, she said, you should talk to this booth over here, and beside her was the School of Community and Public Affairs. And I think Perry was there, if I can remember correctly, and there was another student that was there. Perry was just kind of sitting back, and I was like, oh, who's this cool guy? And then, and then the student was engaged.
Perry was always there.
Yes, Perry was always there, that's true.
Even before our time.
Excuse me. And so the student and I were talking, and it just seemed so perfect. Community, public affairs, and policy studies. I always knew that those three things worked together, and that policy and politics needed community, and vice versa, and they go hand in hand, just as arts do, and all many other disciplines. But I have never heard of a place that it was all in one. You could learn about it all at once. So it just seemed very perfect for me. And I applied and then got in, and it's been phenomenal. And I just will always say that I think the best students are SCPA students, and Perry does handpick us, I would say. But the interviews, I think, also just speak to, you can see with the student body that there's such passion there for all the different things that we're interested in. You have people that are interested in community, government, public affairs, and policy, and all those things at the same time. And then some that are like, I don't want anything to do with government, I'm just community. But it's so important to learn all those things in any of the sectors that you choose. So, I am getting passionate. I just think it's just such an awesome program. And I guess that happened from that first interaction. And no shade to political science. I think it's also very important to learn. But I am grateful to that person that directed me towards SCPA because I know that it was the right fit for me. And now the things that I'm going on to do, I didn't want to do before. And I didn't even know that there were options. And I learned that and gained that through classes. So, yeah, I'll stop there.
Thank you.
Hello, friends. My name is Jay. They, them pronouns. I'm born in Fredericton off the coast of the Woolastook watershed. I'm a carceral abolitionist. That means I don't believe in police and prisons in society. And perhaps most relevant to this discussion, I'm a 2024 alum of the SCPA and a member, I think the most recent member of the advisory committee. I haven't been to any meetings yet. And I love what you're saying, because I've been that person at that booth with Perry, and I've seen the other side of things too, where all the political science candidates are coming to our booth, and they're like, yeah, we're really interested in this program, the community side, and Perry's like, you're smart, but I don't think you have that je ne sais quoi here. Maybe go to the political science booth across the way. Concordia always sets us aside from each other like that, so I don't know if that's on purpose or if that just shakes out that way, but we seem to have a reciprocal relationship back and forth. The SCPA is really special to me. When I came to Montreal, I came from a background where I was really close-knit with my community. We're very active in my hometown. And I brought 2 years of education with me, and I want to keep what I fostered. So I looked at every program that they had to offer at Concordia and McGill, And I was like, what is this oddball program that nobody has heard of? Like, this is for me. So I didn't get to go to any open house or anything. I just like felt a good vibe. I was a little bit scared that the gatekeeper was gonna bounce me out, but he was like, come right in. And I don't regret it. Like, it's really been an incredible experience. Like, just being in this program, I think, has helped me like find my voice, to feel confident, and to really be able to sort of think critically and think creatively. It's not about telling you what it is you need to think about. It's about teaching you the skills to help you arrive to your own conclusions through your own processes. So I think we're going to talk more about some of these. So I'm going to happily pass the mic.
Wow. I'm the only one of the 5 that was never interviewed by Perry. Perry. Perry and I, the same cohort. Oh, listen to those. Oh. So now you know how old I am. Yeah, no, Perry and I, we were actually classmates in the school. And I'm not sure we had a shared dream of sustaining our relationship with the school, but I fell in love with the school quite quickly, as I'm sure most of the people who came into the school, and we very quickly realized that that space was special. It was our space. It really didn't matter which discipline you came from, which faculties supposedly had you written on the roster. Didn't matter. That was our school. And I think we did our best, much to the chagrin of some of the faculty, of making every place, every little spot in that building ours. We claimed it for all kinds of reasons. It was a wonderful haven for some of us. For others, it was a catalyst of ideas. For others, it was a safe space or almost an incubator. I think of Matthew and I think of other people who kind of didn't have a space yet. And it, sheltered with the friends in the school, really centered them. For myself, I came into the school already having had several years of volunteer experience and just wanting to expand on my community work that I'd been doing. I think by the time I graduated, the bona fides was there so strong that I just simply moved into the executive level within the community sector very quickly. And I have to say that's really due to the great training and modeling I got through the school. So I'm just going to leave it there because I know you've got a lot.
Sure. Yeah, thank you all so much. Maybe I'll chip in as well. I mean, I started in the school in 2020, so before the pandemic, and I was really attracted to the school. I also was the type of person to go and look at every single program and look through all the course lists. So when I saw the breakdown of the courses in SCPA and I saw that it was an interdisciplinary program, that really attracted me because I didn't like the idea of being pigeonholed into like a particular way of thinking early on in my education. And also my mom was a student in the school when I was a toddler, so I knew that there were cool things going on from a young age. Yeah, but I think the fact that it's an interdisciplinary program, the fact that it's so hands-on is something that's really special. And I was lucky enough that we did have the SCPA space when I started the program. And then unfortunately, I paused my education for a few years. And when I came back, that space didn't exist anymore. But I will echo what you said, Dorothy, which is that place was such a gathering space. And that speaks to the broader culture of SCPA. Like, it's not just the building itself, but my roommate, she graduated from Concordia 3 years ago. She graduated from journalism. She wasn't an SCPA student. And even she's always telling me these memories of being in the SCPA basement, organizing strikes and going to different workshops. And so I think that really speaks to how our school is a place of gathering. And even if we don't have that place, there's something about the way that the SCPA operates that brings people together, not just within the program, but within different disciplines in the university and outside community members. And I'm also a political science student. And I know that there is a little bit of a beef there that exists, but I know we have a lot of students in SCPA who are both poli-sci students and SCPA students, and I'm really grateful to have done both, but my home is definitely within the school of SCPA, and the relationships that I built in SCPA have been really unique and strong, and ones that I hope to bring with me forever. Of course, yeah, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I was just so passionate by the overall topic of, well, it's something that disturbs me so much. I mean, that I just, launched in. So I'll just say very, very briefly that I'm an economist by training, and my first job at Concordia was in the economics department. I should say that when I did my PhD in economics, it was a discipline, it was a totally different discipline. What we studied was what we would call political economy. I was very proud to be an economist. By the time I finished, things had transformed, and they transformed very, very dramatically. So my discomfort in the economics department was, I mean, day to day. I then migrated by invitation to the political science department as an economist. It was much better, I have to say, it was much better, but I was still somehow in this imbalance of, I am an economist, I like my discipline, I don't know what's happened to it. In the political science department, there were gaps in my own thinking, and just to fast forward, and I can't, Perry's the memory of the school, he's also my memory. It was Hubert Gandon, Professor Gandon, who invited me to come to the school, but I don't remember who told him to invite me to come to the school. I remember the invitation distinctly. I knew nothing about the school. I read up about the school. Hubert Gandon was an extraordinary man, very persuasive. You could not say no to Hubert. Anyhow, he brought me into the school, and I'll just end by saying that my own work prior to coming to the school was on the history of economic ideas, on comparative economic systems, when they were still systems that could be compared. And suddenly I was in this policy community environment, and I was lost. I was really very lost. But to fast forward, I think I was a pretty rapid learner because the environment was so unique. And it for me, represented a return to political economy, theoretically, but also on the ground, to be able to understand the interface, the interaction between people, institutions, culture, history, etc. So that was how I got to the school, and then the rest is history. It's been a place that, as I say, I'm a horse that keeps going back to the barn.
I think what Margie said also speaks to the fundamental nature of the school, and that is why back in the late 80s, early 1990s, I was attracted to the school for that. I'm a political scientist, I'm trained as a political scientist, but what I found at the school always, and thanks to Margie, also at the time, Danny Shapiro was also an economist, but there's this kind of openness to other disciplines, and the realization that in order to make sense of whatever issue we're looking at, social, political, even cultural issues, you have to bring in several disciplines. You cannot just look at it from one particular or one exclusive lens, okay? And that's what drew me to the school, and I think that's what draws most people to the school, is the ability precisely, and in our programs, and also the people who are there are by definition almost interdisciplinary, or if not interdisciplinary, at least multidisciplinary even, people. So, and that's what I think is, you know, if we're talking about the distinctiveness of the school, to me that would be there, and that's what drew me, and I think that's exactly also what drew Margie and others. And I think the professors that you look at today, they're also like it. I mean, we also have political scientists, we have historians, we have psychologists, we have social workers in the school. Even among our part-timers, it's the same thing. There's this variety where basically it's the understanding that in order to make sense of reality, you have to bring in different lenses, not just one.
Very well said. So we've talked a little bit about the role of the SCPA itself, what it's brought to us. I want to kind of zoom out a little bit and think about the role of universities more broadly, particularly in the times we're living in right now, which are times of crisis, political crisis, social crisis, and also crisis for universities. So Margie, you touched on this a little bit before. I want us to kind of think about what should be the role of universities in society, and do you think that they're fulfilling their potential to be spaces of critical thought, democratic engagement, and particularly in these times of crisis? What role should universities be playing, and do you think that they're fulfilling this potential?
I'm not going to repeat what I said earlier, but I mean, to me, the existence of a university is precisely to develop scientific knowledge, to develop foundational knowledge, to develop skills. I mean, those would go without saying. But it is also a safe space, if we want to use that term, to be engaged in critical thought, to be able to look at society from different perspectives. And Danielle raised, the importance of interdisciplinarity. It's more than being interdisciplinary. I think these days we have to be either transdisciplinary or post-disciplinary, and I think that's what we do at the school, is that we look at a particular issue or particular issues, and then bring different heads together, so that we don't have to all have the same expertise. So instead of regarding the university as a space of learning and critical thinking and debate and bringing the outside in, we're being shut out. There is a denigration of education at the moment. The fact that, that universities are losing funding, they're losing access to students and so on, in extremis, what is happening in the United States, is very frightening. Because if we don't have the ability, not just to discuss among ourselves, but to be, call it a tool, an instrument for the public, to be able to provide, I mean, we're not plumbers, so we're not going to fix the kitchen sink. We're learners and teachers, and I put that on the same scale, in the sense that these are skills that we have, and our job is to be able to reflect and think critically. We're not consulted enough today, and I don't mean us as individuals, but the academic community as a whole. So despite the environment that we're living in, I think we just have to keep reminding society of the importance of academics. There's this denigration of intellectuals, of intellectual thought, that we are elitist, that we are draining the public purse. I mean, some of that is not new. It's just that it's very poignant today. So, I'm preaching to the choir here, but what we need to do is not claim the space that we know more or that we know better. We learn together, and what the university allows us to do, and here I guess I'm reflecting my years at the school, is to listen and to learn and to take what we are able to, distill from the knowledge that we acquire in our particular disciplines and bring that into the public debate. It's never been more important. You raised the question, we have these so-called polycrises that we're living through. None of them can get resolved simply by addressing them individually. These are all interconnected, and it requires a greater role for universities, and the universities should be taken as privileged spaces where debate can take place openly and freely. And I'll just end on, recently we've had elections and so on. We've all our students are wonderful, but some of them have chosen public life. And I think they're pretty much in all the political parties, if I remember correctly, which and we've had some, incredibly heated discussions at the school over the years. But the fact is that it is open to those discussions. That has to happen more with the public. And the public at the moment, I think, has this jaded view of intellectuals not playing a role, that we are just taking up space, and we are a fiscal burden in extremis in the United States. But I think it's a view that's sadly quite prevalent.
Thank you.
Well, what else to add? I think Margie said it all in many ways. Margie and I guess Dorothy as well, we're part of a generation that knew a university that was much more humanistic, in the sense that we would take the time to think about ideas and to reflect and exchange and whatnot. But with time, I think I remember a dean several years ago, David Graham, said, I don't want to see the what he called it, the Walmartization of the university. Unfortunately, it happened. He didn't want it, but it did happen. The university has corporatized much more. So this kind of humanistic sense that we had, then when I started as a student back in the 70s and 80s, and when I came here, I remember, Margie and I remember we had those Club Jeudi, and those times we just, a bunch of us would get together, go to a restaurant, talk about a paper that we had read, a paper that we'd written or something like that. We have lost that. And I think if I was to redesign the university, I mean, it sounds like you want to go back to the past. No, it's just that that space of discussion, that space of exchange of ideas that was quite free. And also sometimes it could have been violent. I mean, we disagreed sometimes quite vehemently, but violent, not violent, but vehement. It's not violent, but certainly vehement. Sure. And yet there was a respect, and also there was a desire to participate in something bigger than us, which is basically trying to make this a better society with exchanging ideas and things like that. And if I was to redesign the university, that is something that I would like to get back, because I think that's, I believe, I mean, I'm way past retirement age, as many of you know, and I'm still here. It's because I love university. I love Concordia. I mean, it's, you know, I've been here 40 years, so obviously I'm now institutionalized, but I love the university. I couldn't see myself doing anything else. The reason why I still want to do it is because I want to keep doing it. But what I'd like to go back to that kind of more humanistic. You know, when I came here in '85, every single member of the top administration came from the professoriate. All our presidents, or in those days we call them rectors, president, vice presidents, they all came, they were professor at one point or another. Today, some of our people in the upper administration never set foot in the classroom. Our CFO is not a professor. Our advancement, vice president advancement is not a professor. I'm not saying they're doing a bad job, but I mean, it says something. We have universities in Canada and the United States where the president is a business person, or comes from outside the professoriate, okay? Doesn't even know what it is to sit, to teach. And that, to me, is something that we have to reclaim. Because that sensibility or that sensitivity to discussion, to exchange, to me, it's fundamental in the university. If you don't have that, then you don't have a university.
Yeah, thank you. Sam, anything to add? Also, no pressure to all of the panelists. If you don't want to answer on a particular question, just speak as you feel inspired. So anybody on this side want to speak on that?
Sure, hi. So I will answer the question because we're zooming out, but I have to remind you that my slice of what university is from the perspective of small interdisciplinary programs. I came from New Brunswick, and I did 2 years there in a science and technology studies undergraduate before I started the School of Community and Public Affairs. My smallest class was 3 people. Wow. So coming to School of Community and Public Affairs was actually a little bit bigger than what I was used to, actually. So I'm going to answer through that lens, but I will answer the question zooming out to universities. So what's special to me about these small interdisciplinary programs is that in the School of Community and Public Affairs, and I feel this was true for the Science and Technology Studies program that has unfortunately been shut down in my home province, but what's special is that we're forming a different relational approach to education. I'm forming a connection with the program advisor, I'm forming a connection with the principal, I'm forming a connection with all of my classmates, I'm forming a connection with my professors. We're practicing that community part of the School of Community and Public Affairs. And in everything we're doing, we're enacting our education. Somebody mentioned when we used to have a building, the university took it away from us. That might come up in another question. I won't go into it now. When we had our building, it wasn't just community and public affairs, School of Community and Public Affairs students that were using it. We were coordinating that building between students in every program, students that wanted to get engaged with their community and wanted to make a difference in their spaces. And they were coming to us. They were coming to the School of Community and Public Affairs, both for guidance, for inspiration, and for the physical space, because we had the privilege through our School of Management that entire floor in that building. And so we were able to do these things that we can't otherwise do in different programs, in different departments. And that's really special, because when you're able to form that relationship, I'll share an anecdote. In my senior year, there was a simulation class all School of Community and Public Affairs students have to take. In that simulation class, I was paired up with somebody, and I mentioned to you earlier, I'm a carceral abolitionist. I was paired up with somebody who was working for the CBSA and had very different ideas from me. But in this simulation, with this relationship that we built through this school, we're able to sit down and say, look, I know we don't think exactly the same way, but I want to understand where you're coming from, and I want you to understand where I'm coming from. Can we find a middle ground, and can we start from there? You know, we don't have to change each other's minds, but can we start from that middle ground? And I feel like we were able to work together so phenomenally, and that is where I'll start to zoom out, you know, and I'll look at what education is in the broader spectrum. And I see a move away from these small institutions, the small annexes, this interdisciplinary learning, towards like these giant classrooms with 300 or more people. And there's no opportunity to connect in that way. Like, I'm sure profs go in and they want to know all 300 of their students in this class and form a personal connection. There's an hour and a half in this lecture. There's not even enough time for every single student to be able to say a piece. And so I think we're moving into an era now where the School of Community and Public Affairs and other schools like this, small interdisciplinary institutions, we're so ahead of the curve of what we need in society, what we need in our education. And now we're reaching a point where that is at a climax. We really see the need for this coming together, this idea of relationality. And this is the moment when we're being defunded, when we're being kicked out of our schools, and when we're having our programs streamlined into these mega programs. So I think, like, what do universities do well? I think they can form a middle ground where people can discuss ideas, where people can feel free to exchange these thoughts, and maybe can even find a way to like live together and humanize each other and work together in society. So it's a microcosm of a macrocosm of what is possible. And I have more thoughts, but they're kind of like getting a little hazy. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to you, Dorothy, if you...
Wow. To the question, actually, there were several questions that kind of just ran through my mind as people were talking. I think the idea of what a university is, which I think was the original question we started with in this round, actually comes from what, in my mind, what is education. And I think of how I teach and what I give to the students. I'll make it really concrete. They often come back into the class after several weeks with, you know, after we've talked about slavery, after we've talked about a whole bunch of things. And they have a lot of ideas now because they've had a chance to kind of work with the material, and they want me to solve it, right? So they start talking about that, and I give them a couple of words of advice, and I wind up repeating it most of the time, that the questions they have which are not answered and which I still can't answer, which the field, the concept, the Black history, Black studies can't answer yet, it's a great opportunity for them to talk about it and deal with it in their master's or their doctorate. And often when I say that, their mouths drop open. The other thing that I say to them is that because this education that they're getting, it's really small. Like there's just maybe about 90 people that have ever taken my courses. So you think of 8 million people in Quebec, probably about 90 students have successfully graduated with some concept of 400 years of Black history in the province. And that makes them very unique. So I ask them to think about their responsibility with that knowledge. They have a unique knowledge now. How are they going to integrate that when they go back into their economics class or their human relations class or their whatever, whatever the discipline it is? And I get them to start thinking about that very early in the term. So as they begin to build their knowledge of, Black experiences in the 18th century, 19th century, 20th century, they are already starting to integrate that into their own discipline. I'm not telling them to leave it and become a historian but just as they can take those same ideas and a question that a historian would answer, perhaps it could be answered through the lens of economics or human relations or social work. And does it have that kind of, what did I say, real experience for them? And that's the point of making it real. So I think the challenges is what we need to do to make the university continue to be that touch point, right? To prick the conscious, to make them challenge themselves, their own biases, their own miseducation, their own development that they have. They really want that kind of what we call formation, right? And we're there to give it to them. But I want them to do it on their own and in their own spaces, not just out of where I'm thinking. And I think the last thing I'm going to say in relation to what a university is, I usually end my term by telling them to remember that if all they have is a hammer, everything will look like a nail. So it's critical for them to understand that they need to bring together those multiple disciplines, those ideas that we've been talking about, which span many, many, many disciplines, because my course called Black Montreal is not rooted in just one discipline in history. In fact, it's part of the College of Diversity and Sustainability. So it's quite open. And that's why all of what they're bringing in the class can work. But to let them know that because they have this knowledge now to see the world differently, and that they can use their own knowledge through the course and also what they're teaching and bring that together and not see it as being foreign. And I think that trying to do that year after year with the students is what I think makes universities special. And by the way, that college is one of those unique small spaces that you're talking about. So maybe I just carried the school into that.
Yeah. I love how you said prick the conscious. I hope that pricks your conscience. I think that I'm going to keep that with me. I think that it's interesting what I'm hearing here is, like, on the one hand, there's these major social issues and there's the corporatization of universities. And I actually, in SCPA 301, which is the class where we have to organize a panel, my topic that I was assigned this year was universities. So I've been reading a lot about universities throughout this year. So I was reading about corporatization and how that's it. You'll have members of boards of governors who are just CEOs. They've never stepped foot in a university in an academic context as a professor, let's say. And they're even potentially censoring research at this point. And there's a lot of problems that are coming up with this. And so there's this problem of the university as this, it is a major institution, and we exist in society within all these major institutions that have a lot of structural issues. But then there's always these smaller places of gathering that exist within them, be it a smaller college or informal places of gathering, informal ways that students come together to organize. And so I think that when I'm thinking about the role of universities and their potential, and if they're fulfilling that potential, on the one hand, when I look right now at what's happening in the world, at least in my lifetime, I see universities fulfilling that potential as being spaces for public dialogue more than ever, at least in my lifetime. Like, I see the leadership role that universities play in social movements and in shaping major social discussions. And yet, on the other hand, I think a lot of that happens in spite of the institution of the university and not necessarily with the support of. And so those two things exist at the same time. But I think In terms of the formal structures that can exist within the university that help those things move forward, the SCPA and your Montreal Black History class and Jay, the smaller school you were talking about, those are examples of institutions or structures that exist within the university that can help push that forward. And so maybe moving on to the next question is, if we think about the SCPA and the history of the SCPA, are there any examples from the school, maybe a little more concretely, or from the school's history, that you think could be scaled or reimagined into broader or different contexts in the university? In universities more generally.
Okay. Last week, Anna Sheftel, Anna Krujinski, Shirley Belkaja, and I were in a meeting trying to envision the future. Pardon? Oh, VJ, sorry. Yeah, sorry, VJ was there too. Sorry, VJ. We spent 2.5 hours of brainstorming, and we were a small group, and that worked. I mean, we came up with I chair a much larger department. What we accomplished in 2.5 hours would have taken probably 3 or 4 meetings in a much larger department. Why? Because there are more to consider and things like that. And we don't necessarily agree on everything. So to me, small is beautiful, I think, is something to say about this. And this is what the school, to a large extent, if we want to look at it as a model, and I think the university has done that, at least at Concordia, with other colleges, liberal arts, Loyola, Science College. Unfortunately, of course, Simone de Beauvoir as well. Unfortunately, those experiments are still experiments in the sense that we have not really, the institution has not allowed it to, those experiments to develop into something more sustainable on the long term. We have, of course, 45 years, so you could say, well, what are you saying? We've been sustainable, 45 years, a long history, but it's also a history of doing things on a shoestring. Sometimes, so many times, we were congratulated for what we do. For example, our panels, 301, people outside the university, oh, it's just great what you're doing. Yeah, but the resources that we do that with, zilch, almost nothing, okay? So yeah, I mean, it would be nice to take that model of smallness, but really to give it a chance to really develop more and to really support it. I'm not sure that that idea of smallness is always as well supported as it probably should be, particularly when it involves interdisciplinarity. Universities talk a good game about interdisciplinarity because it sounds good. Unfortunately, they don't always put their money where their mouth is when it comes to interdisciplinarity or transdisciplinarity. I think Margie was talking about, and postdisciplinarity. I mean, this is where we have to think, but I think the universities, or at least our administrations, are still a little behind. They're not thinking about it that way. Yeah, I think the school, in a way, you were talking about microcosm earlier, Jay. So I think what we have with the school, or with something like the school, and we have colleges as well at Concordia that speak to that as well, but the possibility of going further with smaller and making it happen in a way that is much more productive, much more effective, and I think, unfortunately, also, there's been a tendency in our universities to specialize, to over-specialize. And this is what the colleges have precisely, and certainly at the school, we're not specialists in anything. We're jacks of all trades to a large extent. But at the same time, I think it's much more fruitful in many ways, and much more productive as well. And I think this is what universities have to think about, to take those smaller experiments and see how we can grow those experiments, make them, more the norm rather than, oh, something that's nice. Something that, okay, we've done our good job in interdisciplinarity, okay, we've done it. We have our colleges there. But no, push that further.
Takes me back to the 1990s when, the struggles were pretty much the same. The political environment was not quite as dire as it is right now, but it was time of cutbacks. And I was going to meetings endlessly on my knees with the dean at the time, who was a a friend of the school and very supportive of the school, but was limited with her capacity to be able to provide more funding. And we were always considered to be on the margins, all the colleges. And again, I'm going to look to Perry for memory. I wish I had some kind of direct connection. But I remember saying to Perry, and we need to be more strategic. Let's get the colleges to work together. And one of the difficult things in universities is that you're sharing crumbs. You've got a pie, and it's divided into so many pieces. And so departments, and justifiably, are struggling. Political science has hundreds of students. If they lose, 10% or even 5% or even 3% of their budget, it's tough. So a little place like the school can't say, me too, in the sense of if you're focused on numbers. So you don't, and these are your colleagues, and I always felt it was difficult, and I didn't want to be in that kind of a struggle with my colleagues, and we were pushed into being in that kind of a struggle. And we had these colleges, 5 of them, all of them, each of them individually doing really good things. Fast forward, okay, go back to what Perry and I did. We had no internet, we were not on computers. I said, Perry, why don't we get the colleges to come together and let's do a common newsletter so that we could be more in your face. I mean, we need to be more visible, and we'd be more visible as a gang of 5 than we could be individually. Even though and we had lots of overlap. Certainly, there was overlap with particularly the school, because our questions are so broad, so they cut across. They cut across sustainability, they cut across feminism, and at the time there was Lonergan College and so on. So we did that, and even that wasn't so easy. We had to convince the other college principals that it was a good thing to do. I'm very strategic, so I always try to think of what can we do so that we can not get more, but that we can have the respect, the legitimacy, and visibility so that we can then ask for more. So that I just kind of frittered away. I mean, it didn't fail. We had a few newsletters. Each college got a page. It was black and white. I mean, when you think of what you can do now easily on a computer. So if I were much younger and if I had more power, I would argue that Concordia is in such a good spot to have a broad school of transdisciplinary studies. Bring the colleges, they exist. They've got good people, they've got great students. Pull them all together. The word polycrisis, just like globalization became a big important word in the 90s that we had never used before. Polycrisis is now the mot du jour. And say, this group, this tying together of these colleges, they're all addressing the different issues that societies are facing. Locally, I mean, at the community level, locally, regionally, provincially, globally, nationally. This would be, I think, right now, I guess it's not the moment for them to be thinking, dreaming. But I don't see that this should be an unrealizable dream. It exists. And one of the problems, and I'm not going to start criticizing the administration, and although I'm retired, I think it makes it easier. But you're even the best of people who are there and they get confronted by structures that are ossified, that are so rigid, and they seem to be immovable, but nothing's immovable. Everything is impervious. You can, it's Leonard Cohen, through the cracks. I mean, there's always light. So if there was an opportunity now to say, well, Concordia doesn't have to save itself from impending disaster. It's a wonderful university. It's got a great reputation. Its research profile now is really high, but it's also got a lot of wonderful things going on under the radar, and the colleges are under the radar, and they should be above the radar because they could be addressing very, very contemporary issues with scholarship, with research, with rigor, and with engagement, to be able to pull us all together. It's not, I'm dreaming now because everyone is stuck in this mold of trying to preserve, their own existence and fight for limited resources. So my answer then is a small place like the school is an embryo because we cut across so many disciplines. It's an embryo for the way maybe, the future of education or higher institutions of education might be designed. I'm not sure I'll live long enough to see that, but why not dream?
Thank you. Anybody on this side feel inspired?
Maybe a little. It's just such a big question, and everyone's speaking to it so greatly. I guess I wanted to add, SCPA is not going anywhere. I feel like that is just facts, because there's just so much passion. All the different, community spaces I've worked in, individuals I've met that have, studied in SCPA or know about it or, I heard about that program. Even my first year, when I really didn't even know what it was yet, there's just such a history, and the students have, as everyone has said, have been, the leaders in student movements have been open the space to other disciplines. Like I just feel like the students, the student body in the school is such a core of the university and on its own. And when I hear some of the things that are being said by everybody on the panel, I just wonder when we are under attack the way that we are, if the students are being asked, and the alumni and the faculty and everybody that is passionate about this program and others, what we could do. And this could be dreaming also, but I am a dreamer, and I can see, if we were really under, in the circumstance where we could lose the school, if the administration, for example, was to reach out to every student, every person that ever taught for the school, what do we pay for subscriptions? Like what's Netflix now? Like $59? I don't know. I don't have it. But we pay that much a month, like mindlessly, for the things that we enjoy. And if we were to ask everyone to give $20 a month or something like that to keep things, maybe that's crazy to think about. But thinking that way, you spoke to innovation. There's just people have ideas, and that's what the school has shown me, that you might not even think that something is possible until you talk to somebody but that's beside you. And I was like, I never even thought of it that way, or I never even thought to do something like that. So there's just so much space for innovation and opportunity. And because the school is so strong, I know that it's not going anywhere. It can't. And I just truly believe that. And hearing everyone speak to the very real challenges and the realities of everything, I guess I just wanted to add that hopeful part, because I really do feel that way.
When you're signing up for your $20 a month donations, remember, if it's on the phone, tell them specifically it's for the School of Community and Public Affairs Development Fund. If you're signing up online, make sure there's a tick box. Make sure you choose the School of Community and Public Affairs Development Fund. Otherwise, they're going to slosh it into Concordia's main pool, and none of that money will ever make it to the school. So just when you're signing up for your $20 donations, make sure. To come back to the question, I just finished this incredible, well, it finishes on Friday. I started studying at McGill Law just this year after I graduated from SCPA. And I just did this incredible interdisciplinary field course. They brought together social workers, management students. One of my social worker friends is in the audience. Management, they brought together, other fields on the tip of my tongue. They brought together a bunch of people in the school health. And like a lot of it, like we go into this idea that it's like, I'm sure you've heard this, Whitman writes on this in healthcare, but like 2 + 2 = 5. You can find new perspectives. So when you bring like multiple perspectives from multiple disciplines together into the same room, now you're creating something new that did not previously exist in any of those disciplines originally. And then they say, like in this article, transdisciplinarity is now 2 + 2 = yellow. We're creating something entirely new. It's not even part of any of those other fields before. And like with this fresh in my mind, because I just did this, Margie, I'm very excited about this kind of idea of something more interdisciplinary. And maybe there is like an opportunity for like cross-listed courses to create that solidarity while still maintaining that independence. and create more student engagement between those, because that is a challenge. The student associations, at least in my tenure over the past few years, have been trying really hard to link up with the smaller institutes, but students are swamped. Our funding is limited too, because we get a share of student tuitions. So they're like, you have these programs, but we're just struggling to provide basic services to our students. So we don't have time, energy, or money to participate in some massive cross-school project. So it's such a challenge in that way. So having that incentive, like to already be talking, already be in rooms, I think would be so incredible. And then further, it's like, it's a bigger discussion because we're also talking about like the structure of education to start with. So if we're delving into transdisciplinarity, how do you gauge someone's knowledge on policy or law or community development when the final product is yellow? It's difficult, and it's not that it's not creating something valuable, but the way that education is structured is that you understand the material and you pass, or you don't understand the material and you don't pass. It's less of an awareness of the individual journey that people are on. So I think when we're talking about scaling this, I would be afraid to just bring 300 people into an SCPA classroom. I don't think that would function. But I love the idea, Margie, that you're getting into with like maybe there's more collaboration that could be happening. And I think the bigger discussion too is on how are we structuring education to start with. And maybe one anecdote I'll share is Dr. Sheftel, when she took over, we started on the same year. I love that. And her bread and butter class was the community activism. Am I getting that title right?
Yeah.
And we wanted to do this in a non-hierarchical way. So from the very beginning, there were some readings that the professor was bringing into the class, and students would be assigned to bring required readings as well. And so we'd actually discuss the required readings the students brought to the class, and the students would help lead those discussions. And the final project was also decided on by the students. And then also the, because it was a group project, the particularities were decided on as a group as well. And generally there was a consensus. We're able to reach a consensus through discussion. I don't think there was any point where we're like, hey, it's the majority of the class, majority rules. I think it was always a consensus. One of the big challenges we faced in that process, and a few of us in this room got to write a paper on this class, which was really cool. You can look it up. It's called Listening Beyond, Reflections on blah, blah, blah. Look for Dr. Sheftel, type her name in Google, it'll come up. One of the big challenges we had, and it came up again and again with other students, was at the end of the day, Dr. Sheftel is going to assign us a grade. We want to get a good GPA. We want the graduate schools to consider us seriously. So there's still this tension. We can't truly get off of like this idea of hierarchy when it's structured such that there is like a judgment happening and there's a certain criteria that needs to be met. So I think I'm voicing like, I love what Margie's talking about. I'm also acknowledging other challenges and scaling, and I don't have the answers, but these are things I think we need to be thinking about as we move forward with these discussions.
You know, I would like to take a minute because I think I would be remiss if I didn't do this. 45 years ago, the school was created by two professors from political science, Blair Williams and Andy Goldner. I would like to recognize Andy Goldner is in the room right now. Thank you very much, Andy. One of the vision, the idea for the school came from Andy Goldner and Blair Williams 45 years ago. So I'm glad that you're here, Andy, and thank you very much for being here today.
Wow. Yeah, I think I also, when I looked at this question about scalability, it made me think of Vijay's class that we took this year. And I think we were talking about solidarity economy. Was that me? Yeah, Vijay's class this year, talking about neoliberalism, and we were looking at a solidarity economy movement in Jackson, and we had this discussion forum in class, and I remember the question of, how can we make this scalable came up, and then there was this kind of back and forth that happened in the forum of, well, is that the question we should be asking? Is it about scalability? No, maybe we should be building networks between these smaller movements. And then someone said, well, where would the borders between these networks be? And then I think it was Vijay who said, maybe we're not creating borders. We're just creating like relational boundaries that are contextual based on different needs and different times. But then, otherwise it's just building these strong networks between small movements. And I think that really resonated with me. And so when I was thinking about this question of the university that we want and how to make SCPA's model scalable, that was what came to my mind, is building these relational networks that have certain boundaries based on different needs or different values or or goals. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. So maybe I think we're all kind of resonating with that. It's more transdisciplinarity, more creating of relationships, and that can grow and broaden into something that's quite large without it having to be one scaled mass, industrial-esque project. Yeah. Okay. So what have we got next on this list? Yeah, I feel like we've touched on a lot of these themes, but maybe we can think a little bit more concretely with the situation of SCPA, maybe particularly, I mean, Jay, you brought up the fact that, yeah, we don't have a space anymore. And I actually received an email recently from somebody in the Concordia, was working in administration in the library building about some furniture that had been in storage that we could come look at and pick up. And they said that the furniture belongs to the displaced students from the annexes. And I thought, you know what, that's a really good term. We are displaced students. So maybe just thinking a little more concretely about the SCPA with our experiences, what is the ideal future for the SCPA? And I mean, I think we talked a little bit about the ideal future of universities, but what is the ideal future of the SCPA? And what hopes or concerns do you carry with you now for the future? Maybe, in more concrete terms for our school. I think we've touched on it a little bit, but I want to give everybody a chance if they haven't spoken on that. Yeah, what do you think of the future? What hopes do you have for the SCPA, and what concerns do you have?
I think we have a very good thing going. To me, it's more a question of resources, support by the university, and believing in these kinds of models that the colleges have been. I'm not sure that the university believes in that sufficiently to really support it. I mean, I remember being in part of discussions, not now, but many years ago, where when we had similar situation in the 90s, oh, well, let's get rid of the, what can we get rid of to make sure that we may meet our budget target? Oh, let's get rid of the colleges. Finally, the university didn't do it, but it was, on the butcher's block at one point. They didn't get rid of the colleges, although they did get some rid of Lonergan, but my point is that, pardon? Yeah, you transformed it, yeah. My point is that this is a very good model, and how can we make it better? I think it's more a question of giving it resources, making it a little bigger, having perhaps more professors, perhaps having a possibility for, our program is relatively small. I mean, you don't have that many courses to choose from. It'd be nice to have more courses, for example, on specific policy issues. Okay, we don't really have that. And of course, this is short term, but I think it would be important to have, enough. I mean, we've had to in order to maintain ourselves, certainly at the school, we've had to be very innovative. Margie created the Community Economic Development with Lance Evoy way back like 30 years ago, almost now, 25 years ago. Because if we didn't do that, we wouldn't have had enough reason to continue. And then after that was the First People Studies program. These are good things. And I think, for example, the FPSC to be part of the school, it's a good thing. But at the same time, we had to create new programs to sort of justify our existence, and the fundamental program that is the bachelor's degree in community public affairs has had to justify itself by adding always other programs and things like that. I'm not saying this is bad, but at the same time, the fundamentals of the college, of the School of Community Public Affairs, sometimes are taking second fiddle, playing second fiddle in a sense. And I think what is very strong about the school, and I think I would like to see even stronger, is the whole critical policy analysis that's being done in the school, but to really strengthen that. And if you were asking me, what would like, if I were to recreate or redesign a program, that would be where I would want to see, and not having to justify our existence by adding programs or adding, other initiatives that are not necessarily part of the core. And I think, because to me, the core is really the critical policy analysis that we've provided to our students and the tools that we've provided. Of course, the other programs can help with that, but this is the core, and that core to me needs to be, I would like it to be made stronger, more sustainable over the longer term, and also offering more. Like, it would be nice to have courses on the environment. It'd be nice to have courses on economic policy, specific courses on social policy, on health policy. Our program doesn't have that possibility to offer that. And so there are just very specific courses with a limited number of professors, but it'd be great to have the possibility to expand the core.
I'm not going to say very much about this because I'm outside. I'm not part of the day-to-day, and I know that there are lots of struggles and with the administration and so on. But Sky, you talked about networks. I mean, I mentioned my big dream of a school of transdisciplinary studies. There are so many amazing resources inside the university. We don't have to do what other people are doing. What we do really well. What we don't have, or I shouldn't say we don't have, I'm not there. What we did not have, and correct me if I'm wrong today, what we did not have was the ability to have solid networks, apart from just having solidarity with X or Y in different departments, because everybody's struggling to hold on to what they've got, and they don't want to lose it. We used to have fellows at the school. When I came, we were active. We used to meet, I don't remember how frequently we met, but we did meet, and we would share our knowledge of our respective research areas and so on. And fellows also came and spoke, to this, would come as guest speakers into our classes. And these were faculty. But I remember it was a battle. One of the battles I had when I wanted to invite a professor to join the group of fellows, the department chair wouldn't allow it. And I said, but we're not taking anything away. We're adding. We're not taking this person away from you. It's on a voluntary basis. If this person says, no, I'm too busy, I can't do it, that's fine. But there's this sense of always anything that you want means subtraction for someone else. When you're building networks, and the school is about that, it's not about subtraction, it's about adding. It's your 2 + 2 = 5. So if there's, the School of Sustainability, or I'm sorry, I can't remember what the exact title, Diversity and Sustainability, there's really good people that are teaching, on environment, that are experts in the environment. We don't have to duplicate, but why aren't we working together? Why don't we have the capacity, of being able to create these solid networks where our students are able to benefit. So we don't have to change, because we can also give. We have a lot to give. Anna Sheftel and our other colleagues can go and into other programs and build up their knowledge on community activism. So there's sadly a culture of silos that exists in universities, just like it exists in governments, and just like it exists in hospitals. And I think we've reached a point where an inflection is another term that everybody uses now. We've reached an inflection point where these silos are preventing not just innovation, they're preventing just getting on with it and trying to co-create solutions. The resistance is not always individuals, it's these structures that everybody is stuck in. So the question is, how do you make those structures, how do you make them more pliable so that so that they're not as rigid?
Thank you.
Professor Saleh made me think of a few things. I want to come back to the policy part, but I came to the school as part of the extended credit program, so some of my credits from my college diploma were transferred, so I didn't have to do as many electives, maybe as some other students have to. And I can see there maybe being an opportunity for SCPA to act like that. And I say that because it's been referred to as like a generalist program, and I don't necessarily agree with that, but I understand why people say that. Because community, public affairs, and policy studies, as I talked about before, there's just so many opportunities in each of those sectors and also working together. But I would have liked to maybe have another opportunity to do a different internship. I did my internship working for government, and I really wanted to do that because I wanted to know if I could work for government or work alongside or wanted to be in that world. And it did answer my questions, but the one part I would say about SCPA is that I wish I had more practice in the policy part of it, and I think that's my own confidence maybe speaking, and I'm sure if I was to go into a field when I was doing policy work, I'd be like, oh, I do know this stuff and I can do this, but I don't have the same confidence as I do maybe in the community sector and the public affairs. So I see it, because my extended credit program, and I have those credits from art school transferred over, I can see why they did and how they were beneficial. And I can see SCPA maybe doing the same thing for other disciplines. There's been so many careers I've thought about doing while doing my 4 years in SCPA. I thought about doing counseling, psychology. I still kind of want to, but that may be later. And I think that happens because of all the different things that we're engaging with. Even because I didn't have to do that many electives, it wasn't until my final year that I was finding all these interesting things. I was doing English classes, and I did Black speculative literature class, and I was like, oh, maybe I want to be a writer. And then there was a nonprofit in the law class and a political science class, and when I came into it, I was working for nonprofits, and I was convinced I was going to start my own nonprofit. And me and my colleague actually, like, we got to the stages of where we were getting incorporated and everything, and it was actually happening. And then now I'm doing an oral history master's, and that is what I want to do for sure. But then that happened from Dr. Sheftel's class, and that came because of the project that we did. So these things changed, and it makes sense, all these things, that people that know me, that I want to do them all, because I do kind of do them all in the community work that I do, which sounds crazy, but I do. So I just see there being opportunities for SCPA to transfer into other disciplines, and maybe that means some of the credits go towards a psychology degree, or maybe that means, maybe that's not, that isn't one that makes the most sense, but I do think that there's opportunities there, listening to what everybody is saying. So, I mean, everyone has talked about that cross between disciplines, but maybe there's an opportunity for SCPA to do something like that. And even, I think of the nonprofit in the law class, how much I learned. I was auditing the class because I didn't need any more classes, but I was like, oh, I wish I would have been able to take this. And there could be a whole section. Maybe there's a minor in community, and there's a minor in public affairs, and there's a minor in policy studies, or there's very specific things that we can study within those three sectors, because I wish I could have done maybe an internship in each of them. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to add.
Okay, where's the camera? I want to look, okay, right here. Okay, so the question, like, what does the SCPA need? What is the future of the SCPA? I'll open by saying, CI Annex back now. In all honesty, though, okay, so I remember the SCPA, we have a mandatory economics class, and I remember I received that class. It was taught for me by Dr. Peter Graham. We used the textbook Take Back the Economy by Gibbs and Graham, and as well Donut Economics by Kate Rayworth. In Take Back the Economy, there's one quote. This was my first year, but I've hung on to this. There cannot be community without commons. I find that so powerful, and I've seen it. So COVID-19 happened. I started the very next year after. We still had, and then our next semester we went back online and came back. It was messy. But COVID-19 happened. I came the very next semester after, and my experience with the student community was nil. Like, there was no student community. We were broken. But that was the process of rebuilding. And I feel so blessed that I came in when I did, and that I met the people that I did, and I was able to play a small role in that. And part of that was singing from the rooftops. Do you know about our space? Do you know about our space? Come see our space. Perry was the one that originally got me there. He was like, come visit me in my office in our space. Finally, after weeks of my program, I was like, okay, Perry, I'll come visit you. And I was like, this is our space? And bringing people in there. And so we were able to do, through the Students Association at least, like a breakfast program. We were able to offer snacks to people that would come in. We were able to have different like activities that were happening in the space at any given time. And I watched this happen. I watched people come. They're like, hey, I'm rushing to class. My class is in 15 minutes. I just want to pop in and grab something to eat before I go. But then there's 3 people all popping in to grab something to eat before they go. Now those 3 people are walking into the hall building together, and they're forming a connection. You know, and these are the moments of serendipity that are not happening if we don't have a space. And I know, like, we're lucky to be where we are. We're lucky that the political science department and the geography department has housed us. But without like this space to call it, and I know we have like not 1, but maybe even 2 rooms on the 12th floor. It's not the same thing though. Like, students aren't just going there. It's not just our space. We don't have the room to house like other departments and to form that sense of community that we had before. So I kind of say it as a joke, but I also say it in all seriousness, is like that space is very important, and like we're still producing like the most brilliant graduates that are like so talented and already, as they're studying, involved in their community. It's not like they're waiting till they get their diplomas to go out and be involved in their community. Everybody in the SCPA is right now actively doing incredible things, but that space is so important to those connections. So like, that's my big takeaway on like what we need, what the future of the SCPA needs is see Annex back now.
You have to admit, though, that the 12th
here.
floor, you have a great view of the mountain. That's so bad.
All right, wow, I think that we're at our time. Yes, we're at our time. Sorry, I was supposed to bring my phone up, and then I honestly thought we were doing sound check, and then we just started, so I haven't had my timekeeper, but we're gonna open it up for questions. So anybody from the audience, if you have any questions, and I think we're also gonna take questions online. I think what we'll do is take questions in rounds of 3, and then just whoever wants to chime in and answer can go ahead and do so.
So for those of you in the space, if you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll be sure to bring one of these microphones to you so that your question is heard. We also already have a question on Zoom, so I'm going to go ahead and ask that. It was just directly sent. And this is a question for Dorothy. Do you remember our initial questions, concerns when the school was established about how to ensure that community was as equally valued and understood? I think Rosa's actually here to ask the question. Would you like to go ahead and pose that?
Hello, Dorothy. You can't see me, can you? Can you see me now? Anyway, Dorothy and Perry and I were students together, and we had the most wonderful experiences, of course, being in the first graduating program for SCPA. And at the time, I was in the community side of what I saw. As my double major was in applied human sciences, applied social sciences. And so we would have these great discussions together about how do we make sure that community is as valued as public affairs in the school. And I'm sure you know, the school has evolved so beautifully that this is no longer a question. But do you remember those days, Dorothy?
She can hear you without the
Of
mic.
course I do, Rosa, of course.
Yeah, so I think it was,
Those were sweet days, so we didn't realize it at the time, right?
Absolutely.
We still thought the world was full of shit and we were going to change it, right?
we certainly did. And it was wonderful to have the experience of being nurtured and mentored and coddled in a way, because we were a small class. And it was absolutely crazy that our first student association was modeled after Parliament. I'm sure Perry would have a few things to say about that too. Anyway, I just wanted to say hello, and I miss you dearly.
From my heart, Rosa, from my heart.
Hi everyone, I'm Catherine. I graduated from SCPA in 2020. I moved on to the MPPA program, so that's the master program here at Concordia. Then I was in the community, the nonprofit sector for about 3 years, and now I work for the government. Not unfortunately, I like working for the government, and I bring a specific perspective, okay? But my question was, like, the program really did shape my thinking. I often say it radicalized me. I could specifically think to Anna Krasinski's class on the neoliberal justice movement. I think that's what it was called. Changed my thinking, affects how I write policy, how I go through the regulatory process at work, and et cetera. I graduated in 2020. This was right before the global pandemic, and you touched on it a little bit. I was wondering, because before that, yes, we were in, right, the SCPA building. We lived in that basement. We chatted in that, we argued in that basement. We voted to strike or not strike. People yelled. We all, this was a place of gathering and where information was shared and where I learned. I learned a lot, not just in the class of that building, but downstairs with the folks in the program. They taught me everything I know, right? Like they taught me everything I know. So, how did things change? Like I've just come back. I've learned very recently that we no longer have access to that space. That makes me very upset. Like I feel very strongly. And I saw in the MPPA that the community aspect, the commons, was not there anymore. We were all at home. It made me less, I participate a lot. I have a lot to say, and I wasn't participating at home. I wasn't going in those engagements. I wasn't going to the office hours. I wasn't meeting the professors. I'm wondering what your experiences were, having been a little bit more deeper, I guess, into those experiences.
I can speak on that. I have a mic actually built in. Yeah. Well, I actually have the dual experience of I started in 2020 right before the pandemic. Actually, my first semester was when everything got shut down, so I got 2 months, a month and a half in person, and then we transitioned to online. So I got a tidbit of that basement space, and that was right away starting university what made me feel at home, and I met people right away. I did like a certificate on organizing sustainability that was open to other community members, and so I got a little taste of that. Coming back, it's very different, but I don't think it's as grim as it sounds all the time. Because like I said, I'm also a poli-sci student, and when I came back to school, not this year, academic year that just started, but the year before, my first semester I only took poli-sci classes, and the classes I took were great, but I did feel very isolated coming back to school in this big university, not really knowing anyone. And it was the following semester when I started taking SCPA classes again that I like completely found myself at home, built a lot of relationships right away. So that's why I was kind of saying before, like, the space was such a great way to foster developing relationships, but we still just have people in our program that those relationships are gonna get built anyway. We talk to each other, we're on Discord, we're talking in the hallways, we're talking in class. We have our little office, I'm always there just because I had the habit of taking naps in the basement, so now I still just hang out in that office all the time, and people do. So I think it has changed a lot. It's really unfortunate. I think the biggest change is like that less people from other programs and from outside the community are able to come into our spaces, but I think we're still able to build solidarity within the program. So, yeah.
I also want to say I do find it grim, and I'll just say this because I started school during the pandemic. I was part-time, and I was very shy, and I was very intimidated by university. I did not talk to people. I was just taking my 2 classes, going back in and working. Like I was work first, and then I was taking my few classes, just trying to get my feet wet. And when I hear people talking about the space, I did go, I think, a few times, and I just like wasn't ready or something, but it was all love. Like it was also, I'm happy that you're in government. I think we should be in government. It just wasn't for me. So I feel like a sore spot when I hear people talk about how like this space, because I feel like I missed my chance because I wasn't ready when I first came. Then it was a pandemic. Then I took a half a year off. I came back and I was just like, and it wasn't until, and I say this again, Dr. Sheftel, you're probably so tired of hearing me say this, but it was in your class that I found community again, and it is the students, like seeing Sky, we did our first year together, then I took a year off, so then like you see the same students from different cohorts showing up again, and that's where I found I was like, oh, okay, like, I know you, like, oh, we can, and then those people brought me in, and then I became more vocal, and it was that class that was just everything that you described about Anna Sheftel's class. It was community, how we did everything, and I formed the most important relationships in that class, and I still have them. And so that really shifted for me, and then because of that, then my confidence grew in classes. I was starting to talk more. My people that I knew me were laughing at things I was saying in class. I was like, oh, I am kind of smart. I can say these things. So that it was just so important. And so when I hear everyone talking about the space, I'm just like, oh, like I kind of missed that because I wasn't ready and I was shy. Not that they weren't welcoming me. That was just a me thing. And I wish that I would have had that. And then, so now going to like the office and stuff, I feel like I don't have that ownership. Like I feel like I can't, because I didn't have that experience so I have like a sore spot around that. And so it's, yeah, like you said to the camera, give us the building back. Like, we need it for what this program is. It's just, yeah, we need it. So I just wanted to add that.
I'm not going to talk a lot. I just want to add, not just that we need it, the Concordia community needs it, and I would even say the greater community needs it, because it's incredible things happen there.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think, oh, I think Paula had a question. Yeah.
So sorry, just let us get that microphone to you. It's just behind you.
I too am wistful about the space. I've only ever seen it when I was interviewed by Perry, and then I never saw it again. And that really appealed to me when I first saw it. But at the same time, I don't think that that means the students are less engaged. A small anecdote, when I returned to my studies, but before I started at the SCPA, I found that during the break in classes, people went dead silent because everyone looked at their screen. In fact, they were more quiet during the break than they were during the class. The complete opposite is true at SCPA. The did during break, I mean, I remember what commenting to Vijay about this. The did during break, when everyone's talking to each other about this, that, and the other, and it's hard to get everyone to calm down. The desire to connect, to network, to discuss issues, to talk about what they just learned, or talk about what else they've been involved in is enormous. So even without a physical space, I think that, spiritually, it's still happening. And something like Discord, where people are still, communicating, even though it's only on a screen and not under a roof, I think it's still happening. I am wistful. I think it would be wonderful to have a physical space, and I think it has to happen. But in the meantime, I think we're making the best of it. So that's it.
Just a few thoughts, but yes, we had a great space. I came in 2014, winter 2014. I had this huge office. It was actually Hubert Guindon's office. I felt a lot of pressure, to be in that nice place. I know it's a big issue, the space, but we had a rough year, I think last year, moving but this year, I see sometimes light at the end of the tunnel where we have also recreated some kind of collegiality, which is very important for people who work also. I find myself, I need to be in my office. I need to walk in the halls to meet colleagues, to talk. And this year, VJ, we have new professors, Nicolas Renaud, FPST also. So the possibility to have our colleagues in FPST closer, because last year I think everybody was spread out. So I think that's also very important, collegiality. For me, that's the spirit of the university. We need these spaces. We need, and I think our school is privileged. I worked in a small department for 20 years where I liked that kind of dynamic, and when I came to the school, that was why I was a bit, moving to a bigger university, Montreal, but then being in a smaller school where you meet colleagues and you have that proximity with students too, which is also very important. So one more thing, I think the challenge is for colleges is, and then when I was chair, I realized this, was because we're undergraduate, we have an undergraduate program. Sometimes people think we're not as important, but I think the beauty of the school is to really push for this. To have undergraduate students involved, active. I think it's very different than big units where it's more, undergraduate studies are, just a passage to maybe something else. I think to have this at the school was something that I find it's important, and also bilingualism. I think that's another added value, and we should push it even more. But I think a large unit cannot even think of doing this. But we said we were a bilingual school. I don't know if it's even official. Is it written somewhere? Who cares?
It is.
But we're doing it, and I think the students are. It reflects in the classroom, which is something that I find also very, very dynamic for the school.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, so I'm just completing my first year in the SCPA, and and really I'm pinching myself that I'm here. It's really an incredible space. And I just wanted to, well, firstly, I'm really sad also that I didn't get to know about the annex. I missed that beautiful, incredible history, and it feels like hearing about it, wanting the school back, knowing that it was the space back, knowing that it was a commons. All these things are really they're really, they sit with me. And I had a chance to kind of go into the space just to see it the other day when we took a picture. But I could just imagine in my mind, what it was like. One of the things I just wanted to share something, like in my previous institute where I was, one of the things that was coming out, this was in a development policy institute, international development, and one of the things that really was coming out was just the very academic nature of it, and like a lot of researchers there were trying to come together in secret, in a way, to discuss how to take back this knowledge, not so that it's not extractive, not going, to communities and taking their knowledge, telling their stories, but how can we actually, engage, how can we build, kind of a social power through knowledge that's co-generated and has a sort of long-term legacy and things like that. So that was something, but that was done kind of secretly, using the spaces in the university to talk about these things. And so when coming to the SCPA, I'm starting to realize the whole school is actually about creating these kinds of relations through links between the community and how knowledge is generated. And for me, it's so special, it's so rare to have that kind of space. And I think there's a lot of potential going forward to think about how to do that. And I think, Margie, some of the things you mentioned, how people think that academic research and stuff that comes out of universities is somehow separate from what's happening in communities. And I think that's precisely our role in the SCPA, to perhaps thrive in that space, to bring knowledge, co-generate knowledge in the communities with people, and actually build that intermediate space outside of these silos, outside of the university, the research centers, and community. So that there's a lot of potential there going forward, I think, that we can take advantage of.
Yeah, of course.
I'd like to just share a story with you because it's very recent. I'm here today because we're celebrating the 45th anniversary of the school. And 2 days ago, I was at the City of Montreal to celebrate the 35th anniversary. And again, the only person who will remember this is Perry. The 35th anniversary of l'ACEM, l'Association Communautaire d'Emprunt de Montréal, which was Montreal Community Loan Association, and became Microcredit Montréal, Microcredit Montreal. I'll telescope the story because it happened, it grew out of the school. This was my sort of training ground to go from history of ideas to Plateau Montréal, which was gentrifying at the time. And there was a nonprofit organization run by a fellow called Lance Evoy. Lance Evoy helped create the CED program. We worked on that together. Lance came to see Danny Shapiro because Plateau Montréal was gentrifying. People within the community were not benefiting from any of this. They weren't getting the jobs. It was a revolving door. Moreover, the banks were willing to take their deposits, but they were not lending any, these people were not able to access any loans. Cut a long story short, it happened, Danny Shapiro sent him to me, I don't know why, and I found it so disturbing and also such an incredible opportunity that I got students involved. We didn't have a graduate program at the time, but I got the senior students involved at the school and some MA students from the political science department. And I said, okay, we've got a project. And we went into the neighborhood. We did lots of interviews with people in the community. And we created the very first microcredit institution in Canada. three of us, Eric Schrag, myself, and Lance Evoy. I'm an economist, but I didn't know I had no idea what we were doing. I'm not a banker. It was scary. We were using other people's money. Anyway, fast forward 35 years later, we not only created this institution in Plateau Montréal, but it generated a network of microcredit institutions across Quebec and across Canada. And the Tuesday or Monday of this week, we were invited to City Hall to sign the Livre d'Or, the golden book for the city to congratulate the 35th anniversary of this institution. But here was an example of students coming into a neighborhood to understand it's transdisciplinary, we didn't use that word, understand a problem, or let's call it a challenge. In order to do that, we didn't just run to, pass a hat. We went and studied what was going on in the United States. At the time, we idealized wrongfully, I think, that the Grameen Bank, and studied that. So it became a research project to understand what's going on in other parts of the world. We brought people in from the States to help us design this. We worked with government because we wanted to see if we could get tax credits. So for these students, they were kind of thrust into the community. I went to this event the other night, and three of the people there are our former students. So it was Colin Berube, Luc Rabouin, who's now running for mayor of Montreal, Mark Nisbet, who works for PME Montréal. So I'm not saying that every single student that we worked with necessarily, pursued that kind of a trajectory or professional life, but it had such an impact on students. And I think it was also, the other impact was to understand that you could mix foundational knowledge with, hands-on, experiential knowledge, and that both were necessary. It wasn't a question of abandoning basic knowledge. You needed that basic knowledge to understand how investment systems operate, to understand, what we had to study risk behavior. It was serious, and the end result is a network across Canada. So that's a wonderful story that came out of an experience at the school 35 years ago.
You have to go? Okay, so unfortunately one of our panelists has to go. I think we're basically at time. So if there's any last burning comment, we'd love to hear it. And I think we're going to wrap up after that. Yep.
Bonjour, mon nom c'est Gilles Laurence, classe 1985. Évidemment, pour moi, c'était très important l'école, le bâtiment, le sous-sol. Je suis très heureux d'entendre parler que l'école est toujours... il y a un impact important pour tous ceux qui ont passé à l'école et que c'est encore vrai pour la génération qui étudie présentement. C'est triste que nous n'avons pas d'espace présentement. And what I want you to remember, that the students that are at the school right now, is that there are a lot of alumni that might want to get involved, and there might be a way of finding a space somehow. Maybe that space is not on the university ground. Maybe there's another way of renting a space somewhere else. Maybe we could get some corporate sponsorship. You'll be surprised at what we've achieved. No, we're spread all over the place. A lot of us have good jobs in community level, provincial level, corporate level. The school has done a great thing, and it's sad, and I was very sad. And is the school finished? I mean, the building there's no way of going back to the school? Or it's still unclear?
It's complicated.
No, it is clear. We're not going back.
Sorry?
We're not going back.
We're not going back. So it's an empty shell right now. Okay. So to the student, Perry knows me. I'm part of the alumni. Some of you now know me.
Raise the fund.
So that's all I had to say. And Rosa, if you're still listening, hi.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you all so much for this
If I may-
today.
if I may, I would definitely like to thank Hana Sheftel for the great work that she's done putting all this together. This is part of the 50th anniversary of the university, 45th anniversary of the school. But thank you very much, Hana, a historian at heart, and obviously she brought us all together, the archives and things like that. This is great. This is marvelous. Thank you very much. And of course, Hana Sherafati for having
Thank you so
assisted
much, Hana.
Hana in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our panelists for being here. It's so appreciated. Thank you to all the interviewees who participated in Hana and Dr. Sheftel's amazing oral history project. And a special thank you to Danny Shapiro, who participated and contributed so much to the school and has since passed away. His memory will stay close to us. Yeah, so everybody is welcome to stick around. If you have to go and you're in a rush, please by all means head out now. But we have a wonderful exhibition here today. There is a podcast station where you can record your experience, your own memories of your time at the school. Hana and Dr. Sheftel spent over a year collecting interviews, and so there are TVs with YouTube videos playing of different interviews. You can go listen to people's oral history interviews of their experience in the school. Please record your own story, even if it's just one sentence, a short little tidbit of what the school means to you. It would be so amazing if you could contribute to this living archive that we're building for the SCPA. There are also instructions right next door. We'll be here until 5. There's food. Please network, meet with different people, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone who came in, and thank you to those online for joining us today. We're going to be going ahead, closing up the Zoom and the live stream, but this is just a quick reminder that it is already available on our YouTube channel if you'd like to revisit or share it. As mentioned, we are here today with this exhibition until 5 p.m., so stick around for that if you're here in person. Otherwise, we'll catch you at the next event. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day.